Hello, welcome back to Error Code Coffee.
Yeah, it's your two coffee bros.
The coffee bros that are not from Nintendo.
What? Oh, the Mario Brothers. Wow.
Yeah, I don't know.
The Coffee Brothers.
Yeah,
We should start a coffee business called the Coffee Brothers.
that sounds very generic.
That's the point.
Okay.
It's like Starbucks, but then
Well, Starbucks, I don't know what the name actually means.
Starbucks.
It's like
Yeah.
bucks is money, right? So
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I don't think it means anything. Like, what can it mean?
I don't know. But that's not what this episode's about.
It's not about Starbucks.
Well, no.
Okay.
Actually, no.
Okay. What is it about then?
Well, I've been getting this question all my life.
Well,
And
you personally have been getting this
Yes.
question all your life.
yes, ever since I got out of my mom's womb.
You plopped out, and then the question was,
Is this feature going to be delivered on time?
the doctor asked that probably. Like,
Yes.
is this maybe your dad or your mom? I guess is this baby going to be delivered on time?
Yeah.
Like,
Before.
I have stuff to do, so let's just let's just wrap it up.
Like, I already took the umbilical cord and wrapped my own neck around it.
That's dark.
I mean, wrapped it around my neck.
That's dark.
Is it?
Yeah, it is.
Why?
Well,
If it's a voluntary choice.
if you're still in the womb, it's pretty dark.
Oh, come on. Anyway. that's
Jesus.
that's a bad joke.
Okay. Anyway, yeah. So, is the feature going to be delivered on time? Do you know?
The answer is always no. No, or I don't know.
Yeah, what? It can be always no. I don't know.
Yeah, but seriously,
It's a difficult question.
it is as a developer, but also as any kind of worker, like a contractor, anybody who gets hired
Yeah.
or gets tasked to do something that is a bit more complex, that needs some planning, needs some like strategy.
Well, I think to be
multiple-
honest, like everything that has a deadline or like has a specific time is something that's difficult to estimate because like, even if you get your house painted, for example, they
Yeah.
will estimate it and they say like, oh, it's going to be 2-3 days, but
Yeah,
even that is not like
of
guaranteed.
course. Yeah.
So
Well, I do have to say that if something is very repetitive and it's the exact same measurements,
it's easier to estimate.
exactly.
Yeah,
So
sure.
that's actually a good metaphor. That if something,
But
by-
you still have variables though, like if the
Of
weather
course.
changes, for example, or something
100%.
happens. So it's still
yeah, you come across a crack or something, and it's like,
Yeah.
okay, we can paint this, but you should probably fix this first.
yeah, exactly.
It's going to take a few days.
Yeah, and you don't necessarily know that beforehand. So
Nope. Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I'm just saying, like, if all the variables are in the same condition,
sure, yeah,
then you will probably have the answer.
yeah,
That's very likely going to happen in that way. That's what we've all been trying to do, like ever since we got out of the womb. It's figure out
how to be on time.
yeah, how to plan our lives correctly. But it's a good question. I think as a developer specifically for us,
Yeah,
we get this question a lot.
yeah, like it's also specifically bound to a certain type of company, I think. So development agencies probably. And like software agencies too, I guess. You always need an estimation for things, and it depends on what kind of company it is. If it's like a hard deadline or like, hard deadline, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with that. The company, the environment, but it's sometimes also yourself. Like if you want to figure out like, okay, you've been tasked to do this specific thing.
Yeah.
How long am I going to take for it? And even at a very laid back company, they will still want to know, when do you expect this to be done?
Yeah, like I'm trying to like dig deep down into my memories, but I think like at my first company, the boss just created the deadline, and we all just had to like abide by that deadline.
Wow,
So
that's another way to go at it.
there was no like input or like questioning us like how long do you think it will take. It was like, oh, I decided the deadline is then and then. Good luck.
I mean, yeah, that's not exactly the best way to do it, I think.
Well, for him it is, I guess.
Did he get did he get things done before the deadline or at the deadline? Or did projects go?
They were always on time, I think.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's the way. So if you if you have the question, will it be delivered? The answer should be, did somebody else estimate the deadline?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess.
Then you're forced to work up to that point
Yeah,
to
but
finish it, right?
That's not like a healthy way to work, right?
No.
Or like to maintain a company. So
It's also unrealistic. I feel like, I don't know how he did it. He might have been a magician. I don't think it's a right, like it should not work.
yeah, it should not work. Yeah.
Because a lot of companies have dealt with this thing and they're trying to figure out how to actually figure out when things get done.
Well, to be honest, I think like websites were a bit easier though in earlier days to estimate because there were a lot less variables.
There you go.
I mean, that's the biggest issue
Yeah.
we have right now. Is this there's so many things you can't really estimate beforehand, and like when you build WordPress themes, for example, I think that's a lot easier. Not easy.
Depends
but
on the features. Yeah.
easier to estimate correctly.
I agree with that. That's exactly that. Like, connects back to the metaphor with a painter. Yeah, if you're gonna repaint the same type of house
Yeah,
20 times, 100 times, yeah,
you probably know.
yeah, there's
Yeah.
a very likely chance that you will be done, and otherwise it's like a few days off.
Yeah,
No big deal. But if you're dealing with a completely new environment, new project, new everything,
yeah,
new technology, even new languages, I don't
Sure.
know, like you're gonna start in a new world.
yeah.
How do you know exactly, like, when your oxygen runs out?
Yeah,
You gotta estimate, like, how it's a weird metaphor, but like if you're like on a different planet, you have limited oxygen.
how long can you breathe?
Yeah, like you have to plan out your movement.
Sure.
Your like effort you've put.
It's a bit of a sidetrack, I guess, but I
Yeah.
think that's why if I so if I would run an agency, I would pick one technology stack
Yes,
or maybe two, but I think only one, and just
makes sense.
only do that.
Makes sense.
Besides the fact that you'll get more, skilled in that specific technology, you will make so much easier estimates and like
Yeah.
correct estimates, and it's so easier to sell than just plunging in the deep every time.
Yeah, 100%. There's you don't have to deal with figuring it out all over again every single time.
Yeah, you get better estimates. It's easier to sell.
And
I think clients will be happier.
your experience and your products will be based on experience. Like,
Yeah.
so
You get better. So
yeah, you get better at the thing you're doing.
yeah.
Yeah, I like that. But yeah, normally when we get this question as a developer, you're not gonna like grab something, as they say in Dutch, suck it out of your thumb.
Or from the air, I guess.
Yes.
Grab it from the air.
Is that the Dutch saying too?
Yeah, I think so.
Uit de lucht grijpen.
Yeah.
En uit de duim zuigen.
Yeah. It's weird analogies, but
Yeah.
okay. But
people will literally put a thumb in their mouth and suck it.
yeah, and
Just
then it's like,
before
I know.
Yes.
But yeah, we normally most times I guess we base our answers on considerations like a previous experience with features or projects. But that's a feeling you have, like, right? It's like not like you have some kind of report on your,
Yeah, especially if you're dealing with a new type of project, right?
Yeah.
It's not the same, like a WordPress theme, as you said.
Yeah.
You can estimate it, like if you've done that like 10 times, the 11th time will be probably on time.
Well, more accurate at least. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so like the careful considerations that we make, and then we also we take into account some like factors, and we'll go like deeper into those in a minute. But they're all usually based on like past experiences.
Yeah.
They might not directly apply on this project.
No, but it's something, right? It's a starting point,
Yeah.
I think, a lot of times.
It also gives you an idea of complexity. And sure, you might not have all the data points that you need, but you will have some data points, like how long did that project take?
Yeah.
Did we have some issues there?
Yeah, and what were the issues?
Yep.
Yeah.
So we usually like take those factors and we use them to estimate when things get done.
Yeah.
But like our point is though that you cannot base all of this on feelings alone.
Yeah.
So just having feelings alone, or like past experiences, they don't. You cannot use them to. How do you say this? Like actually predict what's going to happen.
Yeah. I think, like as I said, it's a starting point for an estimation, maybe, but it's not. It's not the estimation, or like the base of your estimation. It's just, something to start with.
Yeah, and like again, like this is not something that experience will teach you, because even an experienced developer will still, I wouldn't say mistake, but would still wrongly
I mean they
estimate.
And they also encounter new things that they haven't learned or tried before. So
that's always one gripe I've had with like my my specific role is as a senior developer. They would be like, yeah, you should be good at estimating everything. And like, yeah, I'm trying, but
it was also like, if I made the same thing a bunch of times, sure, but you're asking something completely new.
Exactly.
For me, so what?
So that came to me like quite recently. That if I would do the same thing over and over, exactly, I would have better estimations. But yeah, you're asking people to just like suck something out of their thumb.
Yeah.
So yeah, but that's one of the like a few data points we gather before we start.
Yeah.
But there are also other things we gather, right? Like other data points, so to speak.
That help more clearly define the scope.
I would say like, so the feeling of previous projects is one thing, but when you start a new project, one of the first things you do is just sit with stakeholders, sit with project owners, and just define the requirements, define the scope and the dependencies of the project. And you're basically just gathering as much information as possible.
Yeah. And not the only, but like the main reason we do that is to, further refine, or how do you call it? Is it refine, I guess?
Yeah.
Refine an estimate.
Exactly. It's to have enough data to actually, like predict things as well. It's hard to just lean on your past experiences in a new project. You want to have as much information as possible. It's a bad analogy, but even a doctor would want to know what kind of medicine you're using. Like he needs to be aware. Like it might go wrong if we are not careful with this or that.
Yeah.
So we should know all the variables.
More data is more good.
More data, more good.
More good.
That's our new slogan for our new company.
Yeah. Okay. More data, more good.
Nice. I like it.
It's also something that always keeps going. Like you are not done gathering information. It's always, you can't gather everything in front and then start developing. It's like there's
We've
still
tried.
yeah. It's like that would be ideal, I guess, because then you're done with anything. All the information you can get, or you can like how do you call it, split it up into parts. You can do everything you want with it, but it's not realistic because things always change.
Yeah, it's an ongoing process to gather as much information as possible.
Yeah,
the requirements, they might also change, and what then?
Yep.
Like, how are you gonna deal with that? You got to gather more info.
Yeah. So what's a way to discover or like find out how progress is made?
No, Sonny Jim. I'll tell you that right now.
Okay.
an example that we've had
Uh-huh.
is Scrum. Is that a good example? Is that what you're trying to ask me?
Yeah, I guess it was a bad question, I think, but
But
you get it.
let me put it this way. You need methods and data points during your project to actually figure out if you're making progress.
Yeah.
And that could, like, Scrum is one.
Unless you can like bullshit your way
Yeah,
through a conversation, I guess. But
exactly. Like the point is, like, how do you track progress?
yeah,
How do you measure progress? And a lot of times it's, I don't know, like a very stupid example we got is like lines of code.
yeah, that's
Like, it makes absolutely no sense.
so. Oh well, this sprint I made. I wrote 1,000 lines of code.
Yes.
Okay.
So you've been, good job.
Good job.
Good job. But the point is that you're trying to figure out what data is actually relevant,
Yeah.
and how you can use that to either check the status of your current progress or predict the progress,
Yeah.
the future of the project. And I feel like one of the methods or methodologies, I don't know what you call it, but like Agile Scrum is like a very popular one, which usually means that a lot of people are involved in documenting a lot and then getting a sprint velocity and stuff. We'll maybe talk about that in a second. But I would say it's good to, for example, with us, we've always used points.
Yeah.
For tickets. So you get a project, you get the requirements, you write down the requirements, you make tickets, and whether that's a story or not, user story or not, that it's up to you. But the ticket has a specific value, and the value should like meet or align with the project owner slash I don't know, some big person with like business ideas.
Yeah.
their goals.
Yeah, the product owner.
Yeah.
Most times.
So the project owner's business goals should align with your like Moscow priorities. So must have, should have, could have, whatever. And if you prioritize your tickets and you have all the tickets in order, you might want to categorize them and then give tickets points.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of this thing.
Ah.
But the points are also sucked out of the thumb.
Yeah, sure.
A lot of times, if it's a completely new type of ticket that has new features, new technologies, etc., you will not be able to predict how much effort you got to put in that.
Yeah, it's again like a really vague estimation. Again, also based on those earlier experiences and considerations, and also like the how do you call that? Like the criteria that is made for that specific ticket or story. But yeah, it's still a number and not like a guarantee that it's going to be achieved in that time. Also, points are not necessarily time based; they are also vague.
They're efforts.
Yeah,
based.
it's like how complex is something.
Yeah, and I think it's good to just have a signifier. I mean, something that signifies or like identifies that something is going to be a big,
difficult.
A big ticket. In the end, if you have all these numbers, like you have 100 tickets, and some tickets are like, I don't know, 32 points, and others are like 2 points, and they usually go by a factor of 2, so like 1, 2, 4, 8, 16. But that's another point.
It depends. Yeah, there are multiple ways.
You have
Fibonacci,
which also is like, it's just arbitrary.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It matters that.
I think the main reason why it does matter a bit, though, is that you don't get like weird in between numbers. So it's like it's a bit more, how to call it. If you would do just from 1 to 20, let's say, you can have tickets that are like 3 points or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7, and it's like you kind of lose the value of that number eventually.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that. I think it's just
it's easier. Like if you have Fibonacci, for example, and you are like, well, it's not necessarily 5 points, but it's also not 8 points, and it's somewhere in between. You're more easily going to say, let's just do 8. You know?
The scale is different.
Yeah, it does help, I think, with, but anyway.
Yeah, it's a fair point where what you're trying to achieve is not the perfect number of points per
No.
ticket. What you're trying to achieve is you're trying to define which tickets are the heavy burdens.
Yeah, more difficult.
And which ones are a bit easier. And points, well, you can use them since they are numbers.
Mhm.
You'll at the end of a sprint, which is usually, I don't know,
2 weeks.
2 weeks. At the end of the sprint, you'll have the amount of points you've finished, right? And then you can, that's what they call the sprint velocity, is like per sprint, how many points did we finish?
Yeah, how many points did we estimate?
Yeah,
And how many points did we finish?
exactly.
Yeah.
And with that number, with the sprint velocity, you can technically predict that the next sprint will be either that or a bit higher or a bit lower.
Yeah, exactly. Because what happens is that they will look at the amount of numbers and how, if the numbers were made into a sprint, like if it was possible, and then you can kind of like divide it, right?
Yeah.
Like if you have 20 story points in a sprint and they were all done, then next sprint, we'll probably can do another 20 points.
Yeah,
next sprint.
That's what you're always trying to achieve, is that the number is an indication of how much effort can be spent in a sprint. But again, it's a way to like get a value out of effort.
Yeah.
And in the end, like if you get the question, is the feature going to be delivered on time? You're always thinking about how much effort is it? How much time do I have? Will that effort fit into that time, or will I need more time?
Yeah.
So with these numbers, you're actually like quantifying. You're making it actually like,
you make it visible.
Yeah. But again, that's like one method. I think there's a few other methods probably, but that's the one we probably are going to use a lot of times because it's easy to grasp.
Yeah.
And it's also, well, if you keep doing it with the same stack, same technology,
you will eventually get like information that is really useful.
Yeah. And very accurate.
Yes.
But I don't know, there's also a lot of things that you cannot track.
Yeah, sure.
Like there are tickets that you haven't even thought of before, and that's part of the project management too. Is how do you deal with that?
Well, yeah, exactly. Also, the whole, someone gets sick, so a specific amount of points will not get finished this sprint. While last sprint they were,
Yeah.
So there are a lot of factors, and I think a good project manager would, navigate that whole minefield.
Yeah, I'm thinking of like moments where meetings take so much time, but they're not actually a ticket. Like having any type of meeting, even a refinement meeting, it's not a ticket.
Yeah, so that's the problem with using tickets or like call it points as an estimation of how much work can be done also, right? Because not every sprint has the same amount of meetings, for example.
Exactly. And if you think about it, like if points eventually will lead down to hours, right? Then the manager is going to divide your hours by the amount of points.
Yeah.
And if that fits, then they're going to be like, okay, minus some hours for meetings.
Yeah.
But that can change. That's very
yeah. Especially if it's a more difficult project, for example, even technically or like I don't know, information wise. If you can't get the right information from someone through email or whatever, and you have to personally talk to a client, for example, it's going to take a lot more time,
Yep.
So these are all things that are not necessarily considered a lot of times in the planning.
Yeah, I think, like a good segue to this is like refining is still necessary, and you always got to keep refining.
Yeah, refining should be an ongoing progress.
Yeah.
And even things that you've already refined but are not yet picked up should be refined if necessary.
Wait, say that again.
If necessary.
I'm confused.
Okay. If you have something already refined,
Yes.
but you're not already doing it in a
Yeah.
sprint, so it's going to be for the next sprint, for example,
Yes.
you should still go back to that ticket before you start the next sprint and look at it and think like, maybe we should refine it again or further. Like things could have changed in the meantime in a project.
Definitely. I think like you have to refine as much as you need because refinement, just to give a short definition of what a refinement is when you have requirements, when you have tickets and you want to define them as detailed as possible. What is in that ticket? What has to be done? What are the pitfalls? You want to discuss that with your team. You want to have an agreement of what that ticket is about.
Yeah.
And that's usually what is done in a refinement. So the team goes through the tickets, checks which tickets are not defined enough, and they refine the tickets to have enough detail, enough information.
Yeah, it can also be like a request for more information. So if you look through it and you're like, well, I think we have a few questions here and there that are not clear. And then like a project manager can, outside of the refinement, investigate and collect that data for that ticket.
And usually we have a few hours per week for refinement, but you never know if the planning changes, if tickets get moved around and new tickets get created, you need more time to refine.
Yeah.
And that's the point, is refinement upfront is better than headache afterward.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think also planning wise, I think refinement should be at least once a week.
Yes, I agree. Like if a sprint is 2 weeks, you should definitely still do refinement once a week. Also, just like to refresh your memory as a team, as what are these tickets about we're working on.
And also accept that if something is not refined, it won't be done next sprint.
That's an interesting one.
Yeah.
Hot take.
Ta-da. Womp womp. Yeah, I think what happens a lot of times is that the ticket will still be dragged into the sprint, even though it's not that refined, because, well, it has to be done.
Yeah.
But the problem is that as soon as you start on a sprint, it will get fucked up immediately.
Yeah.
Like how you haven't estimated correctly. You haven't
True.
gathered all the information you need. But, that happens.
Okay. Another thing we add is buffers.
Yes.
And that's just a side note. Like it's a kind of a bullshit thing we do, but it also makes sense. It's like you just want to keep some time spare for unforeseen circumstances.
Yeah, let's just say accidents or whatever.
Yeah.
But, someone gets sick.
Yeah. I mean, is it useless? I think there is a use for it, but...
No, it's not necessarily useless, but it's like the estimation itself is useless. Like, it's not accurate. There's no science based on it or whatever.
So you might as well not have it and then just... No, but it's more for expectation management.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's always better to estimate something bigger than it is, right?
Yeah,
because you have more time.
That's what I'm saying. Like normally developers like me, we estimate things way too enthusiastically. What do you call it?
Too tight or short, or how do you call it?
There's a word I was looking for. But
okay.
Yeah. And then well, you just get stuck. And then it takes twice as much time, and then you're fucked.
Mm-hmm.
That's what this is for as well.
Yeah.
But I think adding buffers is just a good reminder that, it might go wrong, and then what do you do then?
Yeah.
I think in the end, you just want to, you want to highlight changes in the futures. If you're gonna have a future and it's completely changed because of some other requirement in the project, you got to highlight that for the team. You gotta be on top of it, and you gotta start planning accordingly. You have to actually make sure that you have enough resources. You either add more developers, you make the project a bit longer. Just find a way. Life finds a way.
Life finds a way.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I feel like we kind of have a bottom line we want to get to.
Yeah.
what do you think is the bottom line?
Well, there are a few points,
Yeah.
but one of them is that you shouldn't just update or change features willy-nilly.
Willy-nilly?
Willy-nilly. You should always discuss them first and make it like an open, how to call it? You need to communicate properly. That's like a big thing.
Yeah, communication about all of this has to be transparent. You have to be...
It has to be early, transparent,
honest.
Yeah, just talk about it. Like when you're developing and you're encountering issues, say it. Also indicate like, oh, I think this might take longer than expected. Just, keep it open.
Yeah. It's always to ask for forgiveness later. No,
that's what.
That's the wrong expression.
Yeah, it's the wrong expression. It doesn't apply here.
Yes.
But yeah.
But you know what I mean. It's better to be safe beforehand.
Yeah.
But one thing you called before was like scope/feature creep. I feel like that applies here too. Is if people are going to be quiet about changes, about things, you're going to get like creep, as they call it, into your project. It will get bigger and bigger without people noticing.
Yeah.
And eventually it's like, how are we only at 50% of the project? Well, there's 50% of the project that we haven't talked about.
Yeah. Yeah. But also what happens a lot of times is that people will quietly, get stuck on something or add new things to a project. And then, it's about to get down. Like it will go bad.
At like, I don't know, like a sprint. What do you call that? Like a sprint at the end of the sprint, a review.
Yeah.
And suddenly, we only got like 10% done.
Yeah. Like, oh, how did that happen? Yeah. So clear, open communication is important. Everyone should be updated regularly. Everyone in a team should adapt and respond to any changes that will be made.
I feel like that's a very important one. It's your willingness to accept that things don't go as planned.
Yes, and I think that's something that should be required from everyone, like even CEOs, managers, whatever. You can't estimate everything perfectly. That's not how it works. So there will never be a guarantee that something will be delivered on time.
But all these moments give you opportunities to measure and report your progress.
Yes,
I feel like we can make this a two-parter maybe, but there are some points that are other than the points we give to tickets, where you can track some data.
Yeah.
And how do you use that data? How do you actually make a report of your progress? We can talk about that in another episode.
Yeah.
But these are all moments, like all these points we talked about, there's all moments you should use to figure out, are you on time? Are you on the track?
Yeah. And again, they are still not accurate necessarily, but they will at least make something, tangible, I guess.
Yeah, and you can vaguely forecast with all these points. And
it's better than nothing.
Yeah. I think this episode was a quickie, kind of, for our for our audiences.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, our last episode was a 1 hour talk about Jurassic Park. So,
but we'll keep this short. So thank you guys for listening
and watching, maybe. And see you next time.
See you later.
Bye bye.